Hey, happy Wednesday. Hope everybody is doing well. And I'm back at work. Uh, Vacation is over. Getting ready to get back to work today. It's the first day back after winter break, and it's going to be an interesting day. And this is in the raw, unscripted, unedited, unpracticed conversation. And I have a question for you today. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you don't have a way out, like a very difficult situation where you can't find a solution? You don't know what's going to happen, and everything is uncertain. I've definitely found myself in a situation like that before. And what do you do? I mean, how do we overcome something like that? Well, King David in the Bible, he found himself in several situations, or several times he found himself in that situation, and he wrote in the book of Psalms this phrase that has always caught my attention. He wrote, "I cried out to the Lord, and He answered me." I cried out to the Lord, and He answered him. He heard my cry, and He answered me. He wrote this when he was being pursued by his own son, Absalom. The story is a very interesting story. Absalom, his son, wanted to take the kingdom from him. He wanted to, he wanted to take the kingdom by force, and he started a campaign against David, and David had to flee from Absalom because he wanted to take the kingdom by force, and so David cries out to the Lord, and that's something that we need to do when we are in a tight, in a difficult, in a impossible situation. But what does it mean to cry out? What does that mean? What did David mean by that? Many of us, we believe in God, and we trust in God, and when we're going through a difficult situation, sometimes we say, God, come on, help me. And in our thoughts and our prayers, but what does it really mean to cry out? The best scenario I can think of is when, if you think about you being trapped in an elevator. What would you do if you're trapped in an elevator? Would you just sit there and say, please help, somebody please help? Would you just do that, or what would what would your attitude be? I don't know about you, but if I were trapped in an elevator and I wanted to get out, I would cry out to somebody. I would shout out to somebody. I would scream up the top of my lungs and say, somebody please help, I am in here. And I'd start pounding on the door or on the walls, and I would yell so loud, as I could, because I need somebody to hear me. And that's what God wants us to do sometimes. He wants us to cry out to Him. Why? Because He wants us to suffer? Is that why? He wants us to be in anguish? No, not necessarily. It's that. It's not that. He wants us to really want that freedom. He wants us to really want that solution. And sometimes, when we say, yeah, God, please help, I'm going through this tough time or this tough situation, even our attitude sometimes doesn't show that we really want that, that we really desire that. But when we cry out to the Lord, He will hear our cries, and He will answer. He will respond. God always responds. He always responds. And when we cry out to Him, when we reach out to Him, and we cry out to Him, and we say, God, I really need this. I really need you to help me. I really need your intervention. I really need your help. When we really cry out to Him with that cry, and it doesn't, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have to be it's not about the volume of our voice. It's not that we literally need to cry out. But we need to have that attitude of God, I really need this. I really desire this. I need, your help with this. I can't do this on my own. When we really have that attitude, and we externate it or externalize it. That's it. We externalize it to God with that attitude, with that cry, with that desire. He is going to hear us and he is going to respond. And the other day I heard this, and I've heard it before as well, but it really caught my attention. I think it was on a podcast. I heard somebody say, God always responds. He always responds. Sometimes we think he doesn't because he's not responding what we want him to respond, but he always responds. His response is either going to be yes, it's going to be no, or it's going to be not yet. Wait. There's three different types of response. Yes, no, not yet. You need to wait. And sometimes we say, oh, God never responds. He's not responding to me. He's not answering me. Why? Because we're not hearing what we want to hear. We always want to hear that yes. But that's not the way God functions. Sometimes he will respond yes, and we've all seen that probably, where we see a miracle happen like right out of nowhere, or we see everything, the situation get resolved. But sometimes he will say no, not because he wants us to suffer, but because he wants us to learn something from it, or because he knows best for us. Maybe we don't see it at the moment, but he knows what's best for us. And then sometimes he says wait because he wants us to be patient and learn something from that. So, he will always respond. We don't hear what we want. We say, oh, he didn't respond, but he does. So next time you find yourself in a situation that's difficult for you, try crying out to him. And again, you don't need to shout so that everybody in your neighborhood can hear you or wherever you're at, but you'd have to have that attitude of crying out, to really want it, to really desire it, to really feel that you need God in intervention. All right. Have a good day. Have a good rest of the week. We will see you soon.